So I've always been interested in cyber defense. Well, I've always been interested from my time at Yale in computing, and I used to code. I ran Reuters and then Thomson Reuters in the sort of late 90s, first decade of this century, and we were subject to significant amounts of electronic probing, in part because of the electronic trading systems we operated in foreign currency and in fixed income. And as a result, I sort of fell in with a group of, call it concerned cyber warriors who were worried that in particular the nation's banking system wasn't adequately protected. Cyber defense brings together a set of issues that interest me. There's a geopolitical overlay. What foreign state actor might want to compromise not only government and military systems, but financial services, power grid, etc. There are a set of really interesting technological issues. How do you go about injecting malicious code without the target knowing about it? And then even more importantly to me, how do you defend against that? So for a variety of these reasons, including my experience on the Morgan Stanley board, where I was chairing the Operations and Technology Committee of the board with responsibility for oversight on cyber defense, I thought this would be a good area to start a new company, and hence the birth of a company called BlueVoyant. I'm the executive chairman, and my partner, co-founder Jim Rosenthal, is the chief executive. Financial services is quite well defended. That's in part because the firms themselves recognized relatively early what the threats were. It's because they already have very good technology, typically have very good technology operations and spend a lot of money. The threat, I think, is more in the medium and lower size, the savings and loans, the community banks, who just can't spend that amount of money, but yet have attractive assets that the bad guys want to go after. I am told by the people who do know that if, for example, the US or the Russians or the Israelis really want to be in your network, they will be in your network and you won't know it until something bad happens. And something bad may never happen. They may just be there to be prepared or be there to look at your information. So we don't purport to stop the highest level advanced persistent threat out of a cluster of the best governments, but we can stop a lot of other things, including sort of second and third tier nation states, and in particular criminals who unfortunately now have not only their own good homegrown tools, but some of the tool sets that nation states develop have fallen into criminal hands thanks to earlier hacks. There's a famous NSA set that are out there. And these days you can go on the dark web and you can, in effect, rent a very high quality attack platform. So you don't really have to even be able to develop malicious code yourself. It's all there, and you can contract if you're stealing money for a mule that will receive the money and turn it into Bitcoin or some other crypto. So there's quite an underworld ecosystem there. Number one, there are a bunch of startups that have focused on this possibility of could we upend the way in which our personal data is held and monetized. There's also a fair amount of, I guess, thought leadership around the edges of technology, philosophy, government on, I would reduce the question down to whose data is it anyway? And so the sort of way this would come about is, imagine if the model were completely flipped. Imagine if you held on your phone, let's say, there was a digital vault, and that vault contained, either locally or secured up in the cloud, your entire browsing history, your entire history of location, where you had been, where you had turned on your phone, your pictures, and imagine all of your various electronic sort of breadcrumbs were organized into these different collections or time series of data. And now imagine that I could, because I controlled it, Google, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whomever, comes and says, I will pay you 12 cents for your browsing history because it would be useful to me, or I'll pay you 12 cents every month for that. And somebody else might say, I'm training up my AI and I'd like access to every photo you keep in online photo services. And so you could imagine a model where there's much more explicit authorization and you control the data. You'd be only receiving probably micro payments. And if it were that, you might just decide, well, actually, I'd rather not you have, my complete genomic sequencing. So I know it's sort of cool to find out that my great-great-grandfather came from Mongolia, let's say, but I'd rather not have my genome sitting up in the cloud that, who knows, can you sell it to an insurance company one day, can you not?